The COB is brought to you by Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries. From Barangaroo Studios, here's what you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Well, hello. Welcome to the COB on this Tuesday afternoon. It is the 25th of June, and I'm Nadine Blaney.
And I am Tessa Arcilia. Thank you for joining us again this afternoon. All right, Tuesday, and it is a good day. Up over 1% on the SIBO 200. I
think this is cause for celebration.
Yeah,
just consistent buying right through the afternoon. And when we look at our market map, I'm actually going to turn this around and show it to you. It's looking the best it's looked in
nice
a
color.
little while. It is. BHP, that big square that you see there because of its market weight, up by about 2%. Woodside, up by close to 4%. So it really was a commodities story today, but the banks all looking nice and some of those diversified financials as well.
Yeah, CBA, they're hitting an all-time high, it seems, today. So banks doing well as well. So ASX rallying today is the theme of one of our three themes that is leading that. So again, we've got the commodities, we've got the banks, and across the board, even stocks that we saw losing yesterday, we're regaining some ground today. So
yeah, that includes ResMed, which is up by 1%. And we've had
as well.
Earnings. Oh, well, it was down 50 yesterday. I would expect it might
kind of
bounce
recover.
back a bit.
Yes.
But the Collins Foods was actually the best performer on the 200 in percentage terms in the wake of its tasty result. But I think it's worthwhile acknowledging the fact that we did see NVIDIA pull back through the overnight period. That has had a bit of an impact on the semis in China. But again, just because of the pullback, a lot of the commentary I'm seeing just in different forums saying, oh, should you be buying NVIDIA?
Yeah, always. Is it an opportunity or not? But that's interesting because they were the most valuable company for a very brief period. They did it for a bit.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at some of the sectors, I believe, that we can have a look at.
Yeah, so getting across some of the commodities, and we've got iron ore. We still had iron ore looking a little bit shaky, but that is not impacting these iron ore miners so far as I can see. We had copper pretty flat through the overnight period. Gold was up. Yeah, iron ore sort of being dragged down by further weak steel demand in China.
Okay, so let's look at some of the industrials there. Transurban, Brambles up. Well, this is a mixed picture today.
Yeah, I never think that the industrials are all that compelling to look at. Sector-wise, gets more interesting in the healthcare space. We've got CSL up by 0.75%, Cochlear, and flipping the page, hopefully we can get across ResMed. No, ResMed. Weird. Okay.
Yeah,
so ResMed bouncing back after yesterday's sell-off and the sell-off that we saw through the overnight period as well.
It is good news there. And I wanted to go back to what we were talking about, Collins, the earnings today. Because remember yesterday we were saying that, is this going to be a signal of consumer spending? Like, what's that going to look like? They did flag, though, a challenging market. That's what they said. So looking ahead, that's what it's going to be. And the sales for the first 7 weeks of FY25, they say already reflects weaker consumer sentiment.
Yeah, okay. So Helios was out with a profit downgrade. They call them trading updates, but it was a profit downgrade. So it's now expecting earnings to come in between $345 and $350 million after initially seeing a really sharp reaction in its share price. Looks like it'll be ending relatively flat on the SIBO.
Yeah, in Sky City, we saw them doing well today. I think that's in reaction to the news that they're selling 10% of their stake in the Gaming Innovation Group. It's a Europe-based company, so I think investors liking that one today. ResMed is over there. And
Qantas coming under a little bit of pressure. It's spending. We knew that it had to spend some money, but it CapEx needed, and so it's buying some de Havilland Dash 8 turboprop aircraft. So $3.7 billion to $3.9 billion to be spent over FY25 and 26. Let's get to our guest, shall we? David Scott from StoneX is standing by. Hey, Scotty, nice to see you. Talk to us about the market moves today. What'd you see?
Well, Nadine, always good to be back. What did I see today? I saw a lot of strength coming through in cyclicals. Looking at what's going on in the Dow Jones Industrial Average in the United States, the Russell as well. We're seeing a bit of a pickup in those cyclical names. Yes, they've typically underperformed the growth areas of the market over the course of this quarter, but it looks like we're having some spillover effects to our local market today.
Yeah, and Scotty, we were looking today at the consumer confidence data. We saw some kind of broadly neutral data, and tomorrow, of course, we get the May CPI. What are expectations there? Do you think that's got any major impact on the RBA?
When it comes to that inflation gauge, certainly tomorrow we're going to get a lot more of a read when it comes to those services prices, which we know is the forefront of attention at the RBA. They've got to be feeling really uncomfortable about the picture of underlying inflation pressures here in Australia. It's pretty obvious at this point in time that we're not seeing any more disinflation in that space. And if we see a further acceleration in that core trimmed mean reading tomorrow, that could really go and get the alarm bells going for a potential rate hike coming through. It's not there yet. The RBA will still get a full gambit as well, the full quarterly CPI report before its next meeting. But again, we know that discussed only hiking rates or leaving them unchanged at the last meeting last week. If we see any further upside surprises in that inflation, that print, then certainly that does go and increase the risk. We'll see another increase in that cash rate.
And following up on the consumer trend, Scotty, so we had Collins Food today, and yesterday Nadine and I were discussing what spending is going to be like. So they had good results, flagging difficult market. What is your take on the results there and the behavior of consumers, I suppose?
Look, I don't go and follow at the individual company level anywhere near as close as I used to do in former jobs and everything else. But one thing I can just tell is that when it comes to a lot of those consumer sentiment surveys, don't look at what consumers are telling you. Look at how they're behaving. And whilst we're seeing at a per capita level, spending is sluggish across the economy, in an aggregate sense, it is still pretty strong out there. And we know come this time next week, energy subsidies come in place. We know there's going to be tax cuts on the way as well. So when you put that together, things are still holding up okay, albeit it's not rollicking along at this point in time.
Yeah, Scotty, when I look and put this day in context, we are looking at a US session that will be dictated, I guess, to a large degree by what happens with tech, obviously. But I know that E-minis are pushing higher. How are we looking with the Dow futures as well? Because the Dow was sort of the standout performer last night in terms of an index.
Well, Nadine, let me go check my trusty screen up here above. I can see they're currently up around about 0.2%, actually outperformed at this point in time by Russell Futures. So again, that cyclical play coming through. But just mentioning E-mini Dow futures, that's what I've been looking at today. On the lookout for a potential bullish break, sitting there in a wedge pattern. And the way it's calling up this price, there's a lot of momentum to the top side, as you've mentioned as well. From a technical perspective, it looks like we're on for a possible bullish break. And if that flows through, there's every likelihood that would go and spill over to our local market as well. Just given the similarities, very cyclical in nature, the ASX, big miners, big banks, and a lot of consumer stocks as well.
Okay, so we'll be watching the Dow tonight.
We will, and I don't want to go into Forex and look at what you think of the technicals there. And I'm really interested in the yen. when everyone's on yen intervention alert, and I asked this to Kyle yesterday. I forget the phrase that he used, but it's something like the boy who cried wolf, because we've heard this, they might for so long. But are we on the cusp of something actually happening, Scotty?
Tessa, the risk is building. I wouldn't say it's imminent right now. When it comes to what I've seen from intervention in the recent history, it's not so much about the level. I know a lot of people are talking about 160, and we know that it got to a high of 160.17, and that's where the intervention episode happened in the latter parts of April. But to me, it's really about the speed of the unwind. So if you see like another couple of big figure move higher and punching through, say like 162 or something like that, on no fundamental grounds whatsoever, that's when the moment really starts to go and get amplified, that we might go and see the Ministry of Finance say to the Bank of Japan, hey, pull the trigger, go and support the yen. To me right now, yes, there's a lot of apprehension to go and break through this figure. But at this point in time, if you said to me, is it imminent we're going to go and see some sort of intervention take place here and now? I don't think so.
All right, Scotty, so great to catch up with you, get a wrap on the day, some of those key moves that you're watching. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Scotty.
Problem.
David Scott there joining us from StoneX. So Commonwealth Bank, record heights for that big bank. Speaking of the cyclical nature of our market, David Kosh caught up with Francesco De Stratis from Ord Minnett and Mark Moreland from Team Invest.
Totally objective, we say CBA, what are you going to get if you buy it today? Now there's a difference between buying it today and owning it already. If you bought it in the float, and I've got members who did that, I've got members that have got big amounts of CBA, and they're not selling because they don't want to pay big
Huge
tax
amount of
bill and all
tax,
the rest of it. And look, that's a way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is the opportunity cost, and say, well, from where we are now is the reality. Would I buy it? No chance. Would I hold it? Maybe if I'd had it for a long time, there's a big tax bill, maybe. I wouldn't. I would sell it.
Look, to Mark's point, I agree. I wouldn't be buying it at these levels. And as a matter of fact, all the banks are pretty expensive relative to their long-term averages. So it's hard to buy into the banks unless you go look at regionals, and you might sort of pick up something. Bank of Queensland's probably a favourite on the regional side of things, but even that's hard. But even those people that have had large holdings for a long time, I'm happy to sort of talk to them about reducing.
Right.
Look at their tax situation. Have they got any tax losses from this year? Sell a bit of your Commonwealth Bank. Take some of that off the table, because your Commonwealth Bank holding, and we see it all the time, is a very large part of their portfolio at a retail level. If something happens to CBA tomorrow and it falls 20%, their whole portfolio falls by almost 20% as well. So take a bit off the table, I say.
Okay.
You know what that translates into, Tessa? That translates into sell.
It
'Cause they
does.
take
I'm
profits
just
to
looking
sell.
at the prices. So it's ending at 128.28, up 1.17% CBA there.
Yeah, okay, let's take a look at some of the percentage point movers. The leaders today, we've talked about Collins Foods, up by 7.4%. So nice to see that in the space. James Hardie is up by 4.5%.
To see them up there as well. It's, to see James Hardie doing well.
Well, it's had a presentation day, so we've releasing its FY24 earnings guidance recently. Jefferies is saying that its 10-year plan puts that guidance shock into the context. So being well received by the market, as you can see there.
Okay, and let's look at the laggards. Red 5 over there in Paladin Energy. So we had some news today that they put in a bid for a takeover of Fission Uranium, a Canadian company, and we've seen the movement there down 5.5% today.
Interesting, because we've got some of these some of the brokers weighing in on this one, and we've got a shareholder coming through and saying that Fission acquisition will bring in a big new Chinese customer. So not all negativity, but the market is voting with its feet.
And we had a guest today. I have to remember, you check out the website, but he called it a jewel in the crown of Paladin Energy. So that's positive.
Okay, Wilson says upgraded its price target by 9% for PolyNovo to $2.65 per share. So that's why it's kind of conversely interesting when you see what the share price has done today. And when we're talking about Aurora as well, today got a bit of market talk around that one coming from Jefferies, saying that the collapse in Aurora's share price equates to some 70% of the cost of acquiring that Saverglass business in Europe that has not turned out to be the best move it ever made.
Concerns over the balance sheet, overshadowing valuation, they say. Okay. All right, let's have a look at the
big
smaller
moves
end.
being seen here. I don't even know what Macro Metals is, but just for fun, I'm going to look it up. M4M is the ticker code. Can't see any news associated with it, so let's draw a line under
31.
that.
Big move up. Okay, let's look at the laggards on the small end of the market. Encounter Resources and Anson Resources just down less than 10%. A lot of resources stocks on the lower end of the market.
Okay, so let's take a look at what we're expecting to see overnight. Wow, we've got the Bank of Canada. Canada is releasing its inflation data. So you know that the Bank of Canada actually cut rates, really putting it in contrast to what we're expecting here in Australia. So we'll be watching that one for interesting stuff there.
Yeah, we have consumer confidence in the US. Of course, the big one we're looking out for is the PCE on Friday. We also have more of the FOMC speakers. Lisa Cook up tonight.
Yeah, so she'll be talking about the economic outlook. Tomorrow, we've got monthly inflation results here. So that is a big one that we'll be keeping our eye on, and a little bit of color coming from the RBA.
Yeah, we're looking to see that. All right. We also... I'll have a look at the market. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Indeed, it's still up by more than 1%. I'm going to just check the ASX if it's around the same, 1.36% for the ASX. And we have 10 out of 11 sectors in the green today. That's really great news.
7,838 is the final figure there. So again, we've got the NASDAQ E-minis and the S&P 500 E-minis in positive territory. And you just heard David Scott from StoneX saying that the Dow is looking potentially at a breakout. Around the region, Asian shares mostly higher. The yen has hit a record low versus the euro. The Aussie dollar and the Kiwi dollar doing well against the yen today. And some late news today coming from Kip McGrath Education Centres. It says that its full year net profit after tax will come in between $1.1 and $1.3 million, with a stronger second half in line with previous years. So we'll watch KME as the ticker code when the market opens tomorrow again.
All right. And as you know, we are live from 9:45 tomorrow, Wednesday morning. Do join us again.
The COB is brought to you by Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries.
Gil.
Oh, hey, Ken.
Here we go.
You still trading?
Pepperstone. Trusted in over 160 countries. You?
Well, I'm still with...
I don't think anyone trusts them.
No, I'm fine with it. Just like I'm fine with my trusty coach. 1980s John McEnroe.
Pathetic! Horrible! 1980s, huh? So, really temperamental?
Keeps me on my toes.
Awful! It's a bit intense.
Be better.
Still fine with it.
Use your racket.
He's just staring at us.
Yeah, sometimes he yells and then sometimes he just stares.
Is he aiming for your face, Gil?
He's fine with it.
Yeah, he's definitely trying to hit you.
Fine with it.
Don't be fine with it. Switch to Pepperstone, trusted by traders in over 160 countries.
Come on, you cannot be serious.
Don't do that.
Ow.